to be exciting. And Claire, I think they're just for our very first
people that
order.
So that's right. So any of our stacks, the first customers in both Australia and New Zealand will get the blue light glasses, but also you'll get a point for Croatia if you buy any IC Bright or one of our stacks. So very, very exciting.
Absolutely. And we've waited quite some time to have a product launch. And I think that this is going to be a great one for you to encourage your customers to throw in people's Christmas hampers. And let's really get the sales moving on our new product, IC Bright. Today, we're really fortunate to have Brian Dixon sharing with us. He's an absolute expert on the IC Bright. And we also have Dr. Gail Pearson reiterating the message coming in from New Zealand. So you're going to learn a lot this morning, the key benefits, why it's important to take this product, how IC Bright will complement with other products already in our range. And Gail, I know that you've been collating some questions from our field, things that people really want to know, like why do I need to take this product? So we're going to be covering all of that for you this morning. Claire has just said, yes, when you purchase the IC Bright, you'll be getting a point towards Croatia. So for those of you building towards your Croatia points, and Claire, I know we've got quite a few people that, you know, I think looking at the points where they're at right now, if you're over around 80 points, I think probably even less, you're still in with a really good chance to qualify. We're going to have a really, really big crew coming over to Croatia from Australia and New Zealand. So you can get points with IC Bright as well. And so let's get started for the morning. We're going to start off with Brian. Brian is our Senior Vice President of Research and Development, comes into LifeVantage. He's been with us a couple of years now with a wealth of experience. Also recently, we were excited to announce that we partnered with the Linus Pauling Institute, doing more research, which is, I know for many of you, probably all of you out there, it's so important to have those studies done and the research done that really backs the science behind our products. And so, yeah, without further ado, please welcome Dr. Brian Dixon. We just got to grab some sound, Claire. There we go.
And also, hey, good morning, everybody. Can I start by saying what a pleasure it is to be with you? And I'd also like to say just how much I miss seeing all of your beautiful, wonderful faces. So I hope all is well down under in Australia and New Zealand. Hope you're enjoying your summer there. It's pretty wintry here in Utah. It's getting cold, getting snowy. So I'd be lying if I said I wasn't just a little bit jealous. But thank you so much for inviting me to be here, Pamela and Claire. It was such a wonderful opportunity, and my absolute privilege today to talk about just vision. Kind of what does it take to actually see the world around us? So yeah, I'm not talking about vision of maybe where we're going, but literally our vision and what it takes to see this beautiful world we have around us. So what I'm going to focus on today is eye health. So let's talk a little bit about eye health. I want to talk about, one, how our vision system is working. I want to talk a little bit about some of the special considerations or things that are working against our vision. And then I'll talk about some things we can do to help support our vision, especially nutritionally. So let's jump right in. And if you ever heard me speak before, you know, I like to give a lot of background, a lot of scientific background. I'm definitely going to do that here to start. But don't feel like you have to know all of this. I want to give you this information just for your own background, your own knowledge, your own curiosity. But if we go back to our intro biology classes, whether that's high school or university, right, we probably talked about this thing called the electromagnetic spectrum. Yeah, it's a mouthful for sure. But the electromagnetic spectrum is all of that radiation that exists in our world around us and literally throughout the universe. And it's things like radio waves. You've probably heard of things like infrared or ultraviolet. But then we also have X-rays, gamma rays, right? This whole spectrum of radiation that exists in our world around us. And somewhere within that electromagnetic spectrum is this tiny little sliver that we call the visible spectrum. And as the name might suggest, we call it the visual spectrum because it's actually it's the radiation that we can actually visualize with our visual systems. And to really illustrate what is this visual or visible spectrum, I think very easily we can talk about a rainbow. I think we've all have seen a rainbow in the course of our lives. And so what's happening is, like a prism, the sunlight is being diffused out into all those different wavelengths of light or colors that we can see. So from the yellows and reds to the blues and purples. Now, I'm going to give you a little bit of homework here, but has anybody ever seen a double rainbow? It's pretty cool when you do see them if you've had the opportunity. But how closely have you looked at that second rainbow? Are the colors in the same orders, going from reds to purples? Or is there something else going on? It's a really interesting phenomenon. So either do a little bit of research, or the next time you see a double rainbow, look really closely at it. So here's a little schematic of our eye. And this is where our visualization first begins. And for me, I like to think of the eye as being like a movie projector that's projecting the light onto the screen. And really, that's very similar to what's happening with the eye. So we have the light that's coming in through the lenses at the front of the eye, and it's being projected on the back of the eye, right? Or that movie screen. And yes, that image is actually inverted on the back of our eye. But then what happens is that light triggers these different receptors, photoreceptors, that turn that light signal into an electrochemical signal that can then shoot down the nerves and go all the way to the back of our brain, to our visual cortex, where we see the world around us. And what is so amazing about that visual cortex is that is where that upside down image actually gets turned right side up. So we have our brains to thank for seeing the world around us. But if you didn't pick up on that, it actually takes 3 distinct structures to be able to visualize that world around us. It takes the structures of the eye, it takes nerves, and it takes our brain to actually see, okay? So when we're talking about eye health or vision health, we have to be thinking about the structures of the eye, nerve function, and brain health, okay? Now, there are some things that are working against, especially our eye, and that is radiation, and especially high energy radiation. So if we look at the right side of this electromagnetic spectrum, we see things like radio waves, microwaves are down on that end of it too. Those are considered generally relatively safe forms of radiation. And the reason for that is those wavelengths, right? The length between the peaks is actually quite big. So they either just go right around us, right over us, or it can go right through us. But as we get up in energy and get into these smaller wavelengths of light, right? Take X-rays, for example. X-rays have enough energy where it can penetrate our soft tissues, and we can actually visualize the hard structures inside of our bodies, you know, things like bones, tendons, ligaments, etc. Gamma rays are the highest energetic radiation that's on this electromagnetic spectrum. For example, astronomers will leverage gamma rays to be able to see to the furthest edges of our universe. And the reason astronomers have to leverage gamma rays is because those rays have enough energy to travel those almost unfathomable distances of space that can ultimately make it back to Earth, and we can visualize what's going on literally at the edges of our universe. Now, if we go down the visible spectrum, spectrum, something similar is also occurring. So when we're in those red and yellow wavelengths of light, those are lower energy wavelengths, as opposed to when we move left in that visual spectrum, the blues and the purples, those are much higher energy wavelengths. And our eye needs to take this into account. And because if it doesn't, those wavelengths of light can have some pretty deleterious effects to the eye. And the best way I can illustrate how there's those differences in the energies between the reds and the oranges and the blues and the purples is to talk about what's happening in water. Now, I know in Australia, New Zealand, you guys are water dogs and love to be in the water. So I'm sure most of you have experienced this. When you're swimming in the ocean, say you're snorkeling or you're scuba diving at a relatively shallow depth, you can see all the colors of the rainbows, including those red, oranges, and yellows. But as you scuba dive deeper and deeper and deeper into that water column, all of a sudden, everything just turns to some shade of blue, and maybe you're lucky enough to see some shades of brown. And the reason for that is those, excuse me, it's the blues and the purples that have enough energy to be able to penetrate that column of water. And that's why everything turns blue when you get deep into the ocean. So how cool is that? But this also poses a challenge for the eye. So light is obviously going to have some potential deleterious effects because it's carrying energy around with it. But especially those purples and blues, the eye has to take those into special consideration and has some pretty clever things it can do to help protect the structures of the eye. So excuse me, let's talk about that for just a second. So as blue light is entering the eye, just like when light is hitting the skin, we talk about photooxidation, right? It can prematurely age the skin. And the reason for that are especially blue wavelengths of light can cause what we call photooxidation. This is really kind of a special and unique type of oxidative stress. So on the very short term, the eye has to be able to deal with that potential for photooxidation. And just to maybe illustrate a little bit of an extreme case of what's happening and what can happen in terms of photooxidation, maybe not something you have to deal with in Australia, New Zealand, maybe in the southern parts of New Zealand, but something we definitely consider here in Utah is something called snow blindness. Now, what snow blindness is on a clear sunny day, if you're out walking around in a big snowy landscape, what's going to happen is you're first going to get that energy or radiation that's coming from the sun hitting the eye. But then that light is also reflective off of what is literally a mirror in that white snow, and more light is going to enter the eye. So basically, you're getting a double dose of those wavelengths of light hitting the eye. And what can happen, just like we can get a sunburn on our skin from overexposure to the sun, we can literally sunburn the back of our eye. And this will lead to some temporary blindness that's actually quite uncomfortable to experience. But just like our sunburn will eventually heal up, so will the eye, and that vision starts to come back. So photooxidation is a real thing and something the eye has to take into consideration. And the reason it has to take it into consideration is because that photooxidation can lead to a longer-term oxidative stress. And if that oxidative stress is left unchecked, it then initiates an immune response. And if that oxidative stress and that immune response isn't kept in check, this is what leads to just normal aging of the eye. And if they're really left unchecked, it can, just like our skin, lead to accelerated aging of the eye. But as I alluded to or hinted at earlier, the eye is not unarmed. it has a whole quiver of arrows that it can throw at this notion of photooxidation and oxidative, because we want to try to break that chain just as early as we can in the process. So what are some of the things that the eye does to help protect itself? Well, it turns out it has a really robust NRF2 response. So when NRF2 is activated and all of those antioxidant and detoxification enzymes are upregulated, that's a primary defense against photooxidation and oxidative stress in the eye. But the eye also utilizes a number of dietary antioxidants, and then really cleverly and really uniquely, the eye can use some very specialized phytonutrients to also help break this vicious cycle of oxidative stress immune response. So let's talk about that and what are some of these special phytonutrients that the eye is utilizing. So here, another little cartoon of the eye. And I've obviously highlighted here a region of the eye called the macula. Now, the macula is so important because this is where light is most intensely shown on the back of the eye, okay? So this is the part of the eye that is potentially the most susceptible to all of that light, especially blue light that's entering the eye. But if we take a cross section of that macula and we look closely at it, we see this yellow colored pigment. Now, for me, it's always been a little bit baffling about how does a yellow colored pigment fight against blue light? Well, it turns out that it's the molecular structures of these compounds that work to almost soften the blow of that blue light that's coming into the eye. And so the light is hitting these molecules and it's literally diffused across the molecular structure, thus softening the impact of that blue light hitting the eye. So it turns out this macular pigment is incredibly important for overall eye health and especially long-term eye health. So it turns out those yellow phytonutrients that accumulate in the eye are two specific carotenoids. And those carotenoids are called lutein and zeaxanthin. This, when you think about it on a biological level, is really quite incredible. There are over 700 different carotenoids found in nature. The eye chooses to only deposit 2 of them into the macula. That's lutein and zeaxanthin. Now, if you think about that, first they have to make it into circulation, then they have to make it across the blood-brain barrier. The eye has these really small, delicate blood vessels that have to transport the lutein and zeaxanthin. And then the lutein and zeaxanthin needs to be actively transported to get to the macula and deposited in that macular pigment. So the eye goes to great expense to selectively accumulate lutein and zeaxanthin in that macular pigment. Now, in case any of you might be interested in doing a little bit more research on that, it's actually known as macular pigment optical density, or MPOD. So you might see it also depicted that way in the scientific literature or other internet searches. But the reason that these 2 carotenoids are so important to our eye health is they are literally working like sunglasses for the back of the eye. And they're taking that really sharp edge off of that blue light that's entering the eye. The problem, I should say, an additional problem in our modern society is that we've now created a problem that doesn't just exist from sun up to sundown, but we've literally made this a potential problem for as much as 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So the lights that we're sitting under, all of those digital devices that we're on almost all day, every day, are also emitting blue light. Now, granted, it's not as powerful as what's coming from the sun, but what we're talking about is a constant low exposure of blue light that's constantly bombarding the eye. Our eye is constantly having to fight against that photooxidation and constantly having to break that chain of oxidative stress and immune response, and then that eye aging process. I mean, how many of us are guilty of doing this exact same thing, right? We say, I'm tired, I'm gonna go lay down in bed, but then maybe we start checking our social media. I'm checking my emails at night, making sure my boss doesn't need anything from me, or maybe you all down under aren't emailing me with any questions. You know, I want to respond just as quickly as I can. Maybe we're watching a movie on our laptop or on a TV that might be in our rooms. But again, we're just constantly exposing our eyes to blue light. This also has ramifications, not just for the eye, but it turns out it's the absence of blue light that also triggers us to start to fall asleep. So the fact that we're under lights and on digital devices can also have major consequences to our normal sleep patterns. And so another reason this macular pigment can be so helpful, if we can get it as thick as possible, is it can also start to take that sharp edge off of the blue light, and it can help support healthy sleep patterns. Now, look at this, whether you want to call it consumer need or market share, but we now are spending over 13 hours per day in front of a screen. So you add on the time that we're outside, the time we're on our digital devices. This is a constant issue that our eyes are having to deal with. And what else is scary is when you go back and look at this data, it's only continuing to increase. We are in front of screens increasingly more every single year. There was a survey that was done, and what they found was that 9 out of 10 people feel that sight is their most valued sense, right? We live in this just amazingly beautiful world, and I think we value that, and we want and need to be proactive in our eye and vision health. The eye health market has grown substantially in 2020 and 2021. The reason for this, the main reasons for this, is because of this work from home phenomena that I think we've all experienced and are all, quite frankly, a little bit sick of. It's also been driven largely by the e-gaming market. So the e-gaming market has just seen incredible growth in 2020 and 2021. And it turned out this was a way for people to actually socialize. So maybe instead of getting together to play a soccer game or a basketball game, people were meeting online to play games. And it was a way to socially connect with friends and family. What else is interesting is this eye health market traditionally has been thought of as an old people's market. It's not until you get into your mid 40s and we start to need these pesky things, these reading glasses, to be able to see that really small print, that people start to get worried, get serious about being proactive in their eye health. But because of this remote work and e-gaming phenomenon that's happened over the last couple of years, the market has actually reached these younger generations like Gen X, Gen Z, and millennials. They now make up 50% of the market. So when it comes to eye health, it's literally everybody from the young to the almost dead that are thinking about their eye health. So the market is absolutely massive. So now let's switch gears just a little bit. Now that I've kind of laid out the problem, talked about how big the potential of this market is, let's talk about the things we can do to help protect the eye. And I think you'd probably guess the first two things we want to be thinking about is that lutein and zeaxanthin, okay? Those two major components of macular pigment. And I highlighted a couple doses on this slide very specifically. The reason for that is 20 milligrams of lutein and 4 milligrams of zeaxanthin are shown to be the clinical doses required to help increase that macular pigment. So it's important to look for those concentrations, and those are about the ratios that we see those pigments in the macula of the eye. This slide I call my good news, bad news slide, okay? So what was done in this slide was a study looking at carotenoid levels, and how easy or difficult is it to increase carotenoid levels within our cells? So for the first 6 weeks, they pulled them completely off of all carotenoids, made sure they were eating a carotenoid-free diet, no supplements, nothing. So you can see the first 6 weeks, those levels are starting to decline. Then they were supplemented with various carotenoids, and you can see those levels skyrocket up, right? And they go up incredibly quickly, right? That's a huge rate of increase, but they also increase in literally every single person that was in the study. So it's easy to increase levels, and it's also can happen in every single one of us. That's the good news. The bad news is, as soon as they pulled them off of that carotenoid supplementation, those levels come crashing back down almost as fast as they increased. And the reason for this is those carotenoids are consumed throughout the day, right? So as that blue light, for example, is hitting that lutein and zeaxanthin in the eye, it's being ultimately destroyed and removed from the macula, and new carotenoids have to be put in their place. So what we want to do and what our strategy should be is to get those carotenoid levels up as quickly as possible. But then we need to keep taking a maintenance dose over time to make sure that our carotenoid levels are staying at those peak concentrations. So those are the carotenoids that we know are just absolutely fantastic for eye health. But what else can we do to support the eye? Well, it turns out the eye requires, in some special concentrations, vitamins and minerals. So we'll start with vitamin C. Vitamin C supports many structures in the eye. And the reason for that is many structures in the eye actually require collagen to stick everything together, right? It's like collagen is like this glue that's kind of holding everything together. So for example, I don't know if you've ever heard or experienced floaters. What floaters are is there's a little membrane layer, if you will, at the back of the eye, and you get a small little detachment from the back of the eye, kind of that foundational back of the eye, and you create a little gap, and that little gap creates a shadow when light is hitting the eye. And the reason that we get that little gap is that collagen fiber isn't adhering that membrane as tightly to that foundation of the eye as it once was. But also uniquely and interesting for vitamin C is it's water soluble. And this becomes incredibly important for the structures at the front of the eye. So obviously we have the lenses at the front, we have the cornea, and then we also have corneal cells that line the outside of our eye. That corneal cell layer is only about 3 cells deep. But have you also ever thought about that there are no blood vessels that feed kind of the front of the eye? There also, just for fun, aren't really any mitochondria to speak of in those corneal cells. Because if there were mitochondria, if there were blood vessels, we wouldn't be able to see through them. Everything would be some shade somewhere between red and brown as we were trying to look at the world around us. So these water-soluble nutrients, and especially antioxidants in this case, become incredibly important because those nutrients get deposited in the tears that ultimately keep the eye moist, but in this case, and importantly, are delivering those nutrients to those corneal cells, helping them lay down those outside structures of the eye. And because they're antioxidants as well, they can also help break that chain of photooxidation and oxidative stress. So vitamin C is especially important for the structures at the front of the eye, as well as laying down that collagen glue that's holding everything together. Vitamin D is working directly and indirectly in the eye. So vitamin D is working to help support our immune health. I don't think there's any debate whatsoever in the scientific literature that vitamin D is playing a role in immune health. So remember, we get that oxidative stress that can manifest itself to that immune response. And so vitamin C can help rebalance out that immune response and help break the chain on that front. Vitamin D is incredibly important for also supporting cardiovascular health. And remember, I was talking earlier about just how fine and delicate those blood vessels in the eyes can be, and where a lot of issues get manifested first, cardiovascularly speaking, are in the vessels of the eye. In fact, ophthalmologists, they actually find more cardiovascular disease and diabetes than normal doctors do. And that's because when they're looking into the back of the eye, and if they start to see morphological changes in those blood vessels, that's a sign that something bigger may be going on in our bodies. So those blood vessels of the eye are incredibly susceptible to an unhealthy state. And because of all of those things, vitamin D is just going to help support healthy aging of the eye. Vitamin E is working, again, very similarly to vitamin C, but now it's a lipid-soluble antioxidant. So we need to make sure we're getting antioxidant protection in the water-soluble components of our eye and in the cells, but also in the lipid compartments of the cell. So in the cellular membranes and also around our nerves. So it turns out, just like an electrical wire might have copper running through the middle and then an insulating plastic layer on the outside, our nerves are working very similarly to this. So the signals are going through the middle of the nerves, but then there's this insulating coating on the outside of nerves, and vitamin E is very important to protect that covering and also in its deposition. Now, copper and zinc are important for a couple of reasons. They are going to, both support the structures of the eye. So they're absolutely required for a lot of their normal everyday functioning. But remember how I talked about being able to see the world around us requires our eyes, our nerves, and our brains, right? So copper and zinc are also helping to promote healthy nerve signaling. So these minerals are absolutely required to get those signals to go down that optic nerve and get back to that visual cortex. But then they are also working as antioxidants. So copper is working as an indirect antioxidant because it is required at the core of many of these antioxidant enzymes that our bodies naturally produce and can be activated by that protein NRF2. Whereas zinc can be acting both as a direct, right? So similar to vitamin C or vitamin E antioxidant, but also working alongside copper in many enzymes that are upregulated by NRF2 to be absolutely required for their antioxidant function. So copper and zinc are in there for that nerve function, and then especially to support enzymes like superoxide dismutase or SOD and that NRF2 response that our eyes have. And then lastly, I think two more very important compounds for overall eye health would be omega-3 fatty acids. So parts of our eye can be as high as 65% DHA, which is a specific omega-3 fatty acid. That insulated coating that we talked about also requires omega-3 fatty acids. And then our brain, the majority of it is omega-3 fatty acids, including DHA. So again, we want to support the structures of the eye and that nerve and brain health. And omega-3 fatty acids are one of those things where you almost literally cannot get too many of them. What a lot of the research suggests is that the more omega-3 fatty acids we're getting in our diet, the better our overall health, and especially our eye and brain health. And then lastly, a pretty interesting compound that has a pretty interesting history. It's literally been used for hundreds, if not thousands of years to treat overall health, but also specifically to help support our vision and our eye health. So bilberry has compounds that support immune health. So again, we're helping break that vicious cycle of oxidative stress, immune response, and eye aging. And mostly it's doing that by providing more vitamins and minerals and a number of phytonutrients or polyphenols that work as antioxidants inside of the eye. And some of the most potent that are found in bilberry would be things like anthocyanins. And just an interesting anecdote that's out there, but pilots, especially pilots, I don't know, young pilots about 50 or so years ago, right before all of this technology helped pilots fly, they would take copious amounts of bilberry jam and eat it because they felt that it helped them fly better, especially at night. So a long history of use in supporting vision. So I hope that gives you just a little bit of background about how our entire visual system is working, how it requires our eyes, our nerves, and our brains to actually see the world around us. And I hope I've also given you just a couple of nutritional tools that you can put in your nutritional tool belts to help support your overall eye health. So with that, I just, again, want to thank you very, very much for the invitation to be with you tonight, or excuse me, this morning, and just look forward to all being together again soon. So have a wonderful rest of your day, everybody. Thank you.
Wow, I don't know about you, but Dr. Brian Dixon always makes science sound so easy, and for me to comprehend it, he's just incredible. We're very fortunate to have him with us. I don't know about anyone else. Drop it in the chat if you're guilty of being on your phone, laptop, TV at night. I'm trying to stop and not have my phone next to me so that we're not getting that blue light. And also 13 hours a day. I think some days we think we're on more than that. Isn't that right, Gail? I think that some days we're like, right, I've had enough of screen time. So thank you very much to Brian for being with us today. And the fun continues. We have the incredible Dr. Gail Pearson with us today. Thank you so much, Gail, for giving us your time today. And you're going to put that all together, and we're going to run through some slides to delve deeper into that from a distributor point of view, a product point of view. So I'm going to now share my screen so we can run through those together. So let me...
And how can you follow Brian, Claire? I mean, that was probably, I think, the best presentation he's ever done. He's made it simple, he's made it easy, he's dropped a lot of the chemical pathways, and I think that it was a very understandable, and really, I can't follow that at all.
You certainly can.
But what I can say is that he is the ultimate in terms of showing what NRF2 activation and being locked down without a haircut can do.
I think he looks better with his hair now.
His hair is certainly NRF2 activated, that's for sure.
Andrea, his wife, is zhuzhing him up, as we like to say. So
yeah, absolutely fantastic. So my name is Gail Pearson. I'm an anaesthetist from New Zealand, and it seems that my subspecialty has been ophthalmology, which is medicine of the eye, and I've done that now for about 30 years or so. So I give anesthesia for the front of the eye, that can be the conjunctiva, the cornea, the lenses, or the back of the eye, which is retinal diseases. So I've seen a lot of eye pathology, I've seen a lot of eye operations, and I understand the mechanism within the eye. And what I've seen lately is my patients tend to be getting younger. And I'm thinking, this is different. Something is happening in our world that people are coming to surgery at a younger age with conditions. And so we need to look more at prevention. And when I saw this product was coming out by the company, I thought, yay, we're going to do the prevention. And so here it is. This is our I See Bright. And this is set to launch in New Zealand and Australia next week, Wednesday. And this is the way that LifeVantage is going to support your eye and brain health. Brian talked about the blue light, and as a blue light blocker or a blue light support or a blue light filter, this has got the nutrients in it and the vitamins in it to maintain your health for your eye. Thanks, Claire. So what is it? It's just a couple of capsules a day. I'll talk about how to take it when we have the question and answers. So basically, the distributors have all given me lists of questions, and I'll be answering those at the end. Thanks, Claire. He's gone through all of the constituents of it, but just to do a quick run through, because I know often when they bring all these scientific names in, it sort of goes over your head and you think, my God, I can't even say that, let alone know what that is. These are the two most important carotenoids in the IC Bright. So we've got lutein and zeaxanthin, and they are concentrated in the macula, which is the center of the retina at the back of the eye. And that's the one that gets all of the images that you get when you receive an image into your eye. So lutein and zeaxanthin. Thanks. It's also got the vitamins and minerals. He's gone through all of them and how they act. Remember, vitamin C for collagen, vitamin D, which is also a prohormone, is important as an antioxidant, as is vitamin E. Copper and zinc work together. They're better absorbed together if they're taken together. And also they are cofactors in lots of our antioxidant enzymes, for example, superoxide dismutase. Thanks, Claire. And then, as he talked about the omega-3 fatty acids and the bilberry, omega fatty acids, all of our cells in our body have a lipid bilayer around them, and nerve sheaths also have lipids with them. So it's important in terms of uptake of vitamins and minerals that we have that support in that outside covering of our cells, which is a lipid bilayer, that they can get absorbed into the cells or into the blood vessels or into the myelin sheaths of the nerves, so that we can have the nerves getting, or the cells getting maximum vitamins and minerals. That's good for their support. Thanks. And this is what we can say. Now, remember, as a distributor, you cannot make any claims for disease, treatment, or that it mitigates any disease. So diseases are off the table. We cannot talk about diseases, but I'm going to go through what we can actually say as a distributor. Number one, we can talk about antioxidant protection. So it reduces free radicals formed in the body. Now, oxygen-free radicals damage tissues. Tissues make up organs, make up your body. So we are reducing oxygen-free radicals within the body, especially the eye. We can say that it maintains general health and well-being, and we can say it supports eye health. Thanks. It also protects. This is what we can say about protection. It maintains eye macular health. Remember, the macula is where the zeaxanthin and the lutein is highly concentrated. It can support eye retinal health. The retina is the back of the eye, and it maintains eye health. So those are the sort of words that we can use in terms of compliance for this product. Thanks. Vision, what can we say about vision? We can't say to everybody, this product is going to throw your glasses away and you're going to be able to see for miles and everything is going to be hunky-dory. What we can say, though, is it's going to maintain healthy eye function. It supports eye health. It maintains healthy eyesight and supports healthy vision. So again, we're looking at it from a vision of prevention and support, rather than saying it is going to be the be-all end-all to people. And that's an important differentiation when we're giving these products to people. Thanks, Claire. What can we say for the brain? Well, we can actually say that it maintains cognitive function and supports mental function. Why can we say that? Because remember, from the back of the eye, in order for that image to be reverted back to normal after it's gone onto the retina, it's taken in the optic nerve to go to the back of the brain to be able to be processed. And in that process, we're using zinc, which optimizes that transport of that image to the brain. So we are actually able to say that it maintains cognitive function and supports mental function. Thanks, Claire. And similarly, as Brian was mentioning, cardiovascular health, and because I work in retinal division of ophthalmology, you see a lot of changes in the back of the eye, huge much of changes which are reflections of the whole body processes that are going on in the eye. And it is difficult for people to understand that that can be the precursor of things to come. So we've got to get in there early. We've got to get in there with preventative ways that people can look at their health, look at their eye health specifically, and then have follow-on effects to the rest of their health in their body, whether that be brain health, whether that be cardiovascular health, whether it be just total overall health and well-being. Thank you. And so how does it come? Well, it comes separately. So IC Bright is 60 gel capsules. But we also have a stack as well, which comes with the omega. Now, remember that omega is important for the lipids, for absorption of vitamins and minerals. And it also comes with our flagship product, Protandim NRF2. Protandim NRF2, the master of all antioxidants. We've got huge amounts of PubMed studies on it. It's patented. It's our flagship. It's been around forever. We know that Protandim NRF2 decreases oxidative stress, not just in the eye, but in the rest of the body as well, because we can get it on blood tests. We know that it actually decreases oxidative stress. So we've got a really powerful stack here for people who want to maintain just general well-being and want to focus specifically on their eyes as well. Thanks, Claire. So now we're going to go through a few questions that have been pre-asked, and Claire is going to do the questions. And some, these words are not easy to pronounce, but yeah, you're going to do well.
Yes, I thank you, Gail. Sending it through. So Gail sent me through a YouTube to say, right, Claire, here we're going to practice the words together. So here we go. Some questions that we asked some of our leaders to send through. So number one, Gail, is it best taken with food or fat, and what flavour is it?
So IC Bright is has essential nutrients in it that are fat soluble. Remember, Brian talked about the water soluble and the fat soluble nutrients. The fat soluble nutrients are best absorbed when you have another fat with them. Now, we have got the omega within it, but if we take it with food or with fat, it's absorbed a lot better. So it promotes absorption. It's got a lemon lime flavor, exactly the same as the omega. So it's actually quite yummy. It's very tasty.
It is tasty. I've had mine this morning, so it's good. Why is it red in colour?
Two reasons. It's red in colour, which is called a caramel colour. The first reason is to differentiate it from the omega. It's actually made from the same soft gel capsule that we use in our omega, so we need to show that it's different from the omega capsule. And the other reason it's there is because it stops photooxidation of the zeaxanthin and the lutein. So we don't want that to degrade, so it protects that. And that's why it comes in a bottle that's a dark bottle, so that it protects it from light as well, so that they do not degrade. Now, the caramel color is non-GMO, it's organic, it's made from heating starch, it's minimally processed, and it's it's what they call a class 1 color. So it's nothing to be worried about at all.
Perfect. What dose is best, and is double the dose better?
So they recommend 2 soft gels taken per day. And I would recommend take 1 in the morning and 1 in the evening, because that will give you better levels. There is some evidence that perhaps you should do a blast of a dose. So for example, over a period of 2 months or so, increase the dose until you get those levels up. If you remember back to Brian's graph, when he said when you had no supplements and then you went up like that and then you stopped them, what you've got to do is to get up to there and maintain it. So if you stop them, you will go back down again. You can get there quicker, but the company recommends just 2 a day. But I'm saying that you might be able to have it a little bit more if you wanted to get to that top of that graph a little bit quickly.
Okay, great. Who should take it? Is it recommended for children and for pets, or pets?
Well, Brian said anyone should be taking this. Anyone who's concerned about their eye health, anyone who's on computers all day, anyone who's working from home and doesn't stop and has eye fatigue, anyone who's a gamer, anyone who's worried about their vision. And it is a way of the future. It is a way that we can prevent eye conditions. Now, it has not been tested in children in terms of the dose. So we can't recommend it in children because we do not know what the appropriate dose is for children. And similarly with pets, there's been no vet papers to show or studies what the appropriate dose would be for pets. That's not saying that it would be contraindicated. It certainly won't do them any damage, but we do not know what the dosage is. So that's why it's not recommended in people under 18.
Children probably need it though. They're on screens.
Oh,
more
yeah,
than
yeah,
adults.
yeah.
Any contradictions or side effects?
Because it's got fish oil, anyone who's allergic to fish, and it's got soy in it as well, so anyone who's allergic to soy obviously should not have it. It hasn't got any dairy in it, and it is gluten-free, but it is not vegan. It's got because of the fish oil. Anyone who's got allergies to any of the constituents, obviously, then that's a contraindication. But basically, that's about all the contraindications.
Okay, perfect. Where do they source lutein and zeaxanthin from? I nailed it.
Hey, would you believe they come from marigolds? And it's been found that marigolds have the right concentrations at the right ratio of the lutein and the zeaxanthin, and they've used that in order to put that into the product. And so it comes from marigolds, the beautiful flower that we have that's out now in my garden.
Yeah, fantastic. They're beautiful flowers. Why weren't carrots used as a source for lutein?
Well, our mums always said, eat carrots because they're good for your eyes. Well, it's sort of true in a little bit of a sense, because they do contain beta carotene, which is converted to vitamin A within the eye. But the latest National Eye Institute studies have shown that too higher incidences of beta carotene are actually not good, and they're not good for the rest of your body. And also they contain very little zeaxanthin. They have lutein, but very little zeaxanthin. So the proportion of the antioxidants that are concentrated in the macula are not quite correct. So that's why they've used the marigolds rather than something like carrots for the beta carotene.
You should still eat carrots, right?
I think you should always have a healthy diet and eat carrots.
I do love carrots. How do copper and zinc work together?
So Brian sort of touched on that as well in his presentation, and they come together, they're synergistic. So they both help each other being absorbed, and they also work together when you have superoxide dismutase. They're actually cofactors to get the superoxide dismutase, which is one of our big antioxidant enzymes, and they act as a cofactor to make that function more. So you're getting an increased antioxidant effect when you've got those two minerals on board.
Okay, perfect. What studies are there to support IC Bright? And I'm going to drop a link into the chat at the same time you answer this, Gail.
Yeah, and I think people should just take a screenshot of that link to have a look at it. There are many, many studies. I mean, I've just pulled up the one that Brian was referring to, and this is, pages and pages long, and it goes through the vitamins and supplements and minerals that are important in eye-related conditions. So what they did is they based them on a lot of these studies, and the evidence is all there, the literature is all there, and even down the concentrations of what should be used in as vitamin support is all there.
Yeah, perfect. And what would an optometrist like to see as validation? And again, I'm going to drop in chat.
So this is what they need to have a look at, and those are the age-related eye studies, or eye-related disease studies too. So it's the second version of them. The first version actually had beta carotene in it, and they've changed their minds. The National Eye Institute actually changed to the second one. What they do is they've taken a whole lot of studies and put them all together and made recommendations. So a optometrist will be familiar with this, that they are familiar with the pigments that are in the retina and that are in the macula. So they should know and have good knowledge of this. In terms of what do you show them what the ingredient list is. And then they will be able to say to you, they should know it. And then they'll say, wow, that's pretty cool. And that's basically also put up the ingredient list to them and say, this is here to support eye health. What do you think? And I think as a distributor, it's really important not to get too involved in the science, unless you are medical or unless you are a scientist, because you're there to help people and to show them what you've got to offer them. And the more you start to go down the science, the more you think, actually, I don't quite know. So go in with your confidence, go in with what you do know. And what you do know is the ingredients that is in IC Bright. And what you do know is that it has been based on the National Eye Institute recommendations. And that's what you really need to say to someone who's a professional. Less is more.
Yeah.
Less is more.
Yeah. And I guess being familiar with what our product, our benefits and claims are as well.
Yes, absolutely. And as I say, remember, we're not allowed to talk about diseases, and we're not allowed to talk about that we diagnose or treat any diseases.
Absolutely. This is probably a big question everyone wants to know. How does Protandim NRF2 and IC Bright work together?
Well, it's interesting that both lutein and zeaxanthin are actually very mild or very small stimulators of the NRF2 pathway. So they actually stimulate that pathway as well. But you add on to it NRF2, which we know is a master genetic regulator, and you have got a master genetic regulator which will just take the antioxidant effect of all of those vitamins and minerals and the lutein and the zeaxanthin up to an astronomical level. So what you're doing is you're doing everything turbocharged if you add the NRF2 in with the IC Bright. And that's not only just beneficial for eye health, but you will enhance brain health, you will advance cardiovascular health and just general health and well-being.
Yeah, fantastic. Will my eyes feel better or will I sleep better?
So now that you've got sunglasses for your retina, that by taking IC Bright, whatever, and that doesn't mean you don't go to sleep with your sunglasses on. But remember,
well, sometimes maybe.
IC Bright has got all of those compounds in it, and what they do is they make your eyes feel less fatigued. So you don't feel so tired, and you'll know after you've had a hard day on your computer, you're rubbing your eyes, they just feel tired. What blue light does is it increases your melatonin level, and melatonin is important for sleep. And what happens with your melatonin is it increases as the blue light decreases so that you can get off to sleep. So we have actually found also that it's got the additional benefit of being able to go off to sleep because your melatonin levels have changed. So you've got sunglasses in your eyes and you can sleep better.
I must say I've been on IC Bright for probably a week now, and I'm finding I'm sleeping so much quicker and better than I was before. It's been fantastic. And how does it compare to similar products on the market?
Yeah, well, this is actually an interesting question. And I did do a quick run through of some of the other things that we're up against. I felt it was better overall. It had more vitamins and minerals. It followed the guidelines more clearly. It has less vitamin C than other competing products, but vitamin C is a cheap vitamin, and there is a limit on what you can actually have in terms of vitamin C because you only absorb about 150 milligrams per day. So they made up the doses of everything because it was strategic to be able to put all of those doses together at the appropriate levels. And I think we know that LifeVantage does things well. I think they've done this extremely well. I think it's a really good product. And the best thing about it is that it's cheaper than anything else. Yeah. Better and cheaper. And so that's a win-win for everybody. And it's certainly a win-win for distributors as well.
Yeah, fantastic. Gail, really, really appreciate you answering all those questions and running through the product training, talking about the pricing. So for Australia, subscription price is $43. For New Zealand, it's $49 subscription price, and it is 24 PV. So as Gail said, it's an incredible product. You get 60 capsules. On top of that, we have the stack, as we mentioned, NRF2, Omega, and IC Bright. Now, it's named different in Australia and New Zealand purely because of our regulations here in Australia. So in Australia, it's called Health in Focus Stack, and in New Zealand, it's called Eye Health Essential Stack. In Australia, it is $160 subscription price, and New Zealand, it's $175 subscription, and it's 85 PV. As we mentioned, we have some promotions that is happening as soon as we launch next week on Wednesday. So the first 100 in Australia will be getting our beautiful blue light glasses. I did have them on my table here, but they're not here. And in New Zealand as well for the first orders of the stack. So if you order a stack, the first ones that get in will be getting our blue light glasses. Also, if you sell an IC Bright or a stack to your personally enrolled customer or distributor, you get 1 point towards Croatia. That means that if you buy any IC Bright or stack or both, you get a point for both. So that is capped at 15 points for the month. So get your 15 points for Croatia by buying either the IC Bright or the Health Stack. So fantastic promotions that are coming out next week. Don't forget to the other promotions we've got running in Australia. We have the refining mask. We were able to continue that on. That is running until the 16th of December. Buy two and get it discounted. That is running out on the 16th of December or while stocks last. We also have our All Is Bright Beauty Bundle that is running right now. Buy an eye serum and an anti-age cream, you get a free cleanser, which is pretty cool. So Australia, that's $159, New Zealand 202, and that's 101 PV. We also have the Ring in Your New Year bonus. So for any existing or new distributors, if you personally enroll a distributor on a platinum, gold, or silver pack up until the end of this month, you get extra cash for doing that. So for selling a platinum pack, this is US dollars, $100 US bonus. For a gold pack, you get an extra $50. And for a silver pack, an extra $25 in your pocket. So it's a great promotion that is running till the end of December. Also, we have your triple incentive points for new distributors that sign up, new distributors in their enrollment month and the month following. So that is an extra bonus point for your new distributors coming on board. And we have the 1% club. So what that means is if you are doing the 4 business practices each month, you are part of this club. And all you need to do is enroll. So enrolling your distributors, retaining your customers and distributors for the second month, attending events like this one today, and also for you being on an active monthly subscription, you can potentially earn yourself 5 points per month for Croatia just by being part of the club. So lots of information, everything's on our website. Please reach out to our team if you have any further questions. I think that, was there any other questions in here? A customer to upgrade a distributor counts, but not a distributor upgrading. Helen, IC Bright was, sorry, for Australia, it's $43 for Australia, and 24 PV. So thank you so much for everybody. Thank you, Gail, for being here. Thank you to Dr. Brian Dixon. We appreciate your time. Get out there, buy your IC Bright next week, and have a fabulous Saturday, whatever you're doing. And until next time, we'll see you there then. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.